diehard Lion, diehards. That's why we're here in the offseason talking about kickers.
Yeah. Well, are we? But at least Greg can hear us on that. So, hey, Greg, can you also do me a favor and go over to the YouTube now since I've re-uploaded it? I want to make sure that it's that we can hear it over there again. He's going to do it. So we might as well figure this out while we're being really, really boring on the Detroit Lions news. But we appreciate everybody for being patient with us while we figure this out. And we're talking about the idea that the Detroit Lions could be a top 10 defense and that it's not that far of a stretch from how we finished last year. So I want you to comment on that, Mike.
Well, the last 10 games of the season, we were a top 10 defense. Our final ranking was so low because the first half of the season was a historically bad defense. So, I mean, with the improvements we made in free agency and the draft, let's face it, we couldn't get any worse than we were in the first half of last season. Well, like outside of Minnesota, that is. I definitely think we're going to see an improvement. Definitely a top half of the league. I don't see any scenario where we don't finish in the top half of the league, especially when I look at our schedule and how favorable it is for us, the way it's laid out. You know, Russ, we don't have any cold weather games except week 14 in Chicago. Other than that, it's all dome stadiums. All the cold weather games are going to be in the early half of the season. So our schedule matches up nicely for us to make a good run this year. And I think the defense is going to be a big part of that with the additions that we've made to the secondary, with the drafting that we've done, and the way we finished. We've got a lot of momentum coming into 2023. We just happened to run into the champs week 1, but that's going to be a great test for us. And I think it's going to be a litmus test for how this defense is going to fare the rest of the way. If we do well against Mahomes and company in week 1 in Kansas City, then it's going to be a great indicator for what kind of season our defense is going to have. If they can contain those guys, we're going to be able to hold our own with anybody.
Oh, for sure. And I had to bring up this picture that Greg Reich threw up in NFC North, the huddle. Now, I'm just going to throw a little plug out there. NFC North, the huddle. If you get an opportunity to join that group, it's a private group with some smack talking in there. And part of it was bringing up this 2018 classic where the Rams beat the Chiefs 54-51 in front of the entire world. And they 3 defensive touchdowns in that game. So don't think it was all just offense, but do you actually think that the Lions can go in there and they could win this game, don't you, Mike?
I do believe they can win this game. Whether they will or not, I don't know. It's a tall order. The emotions are going to be high in Kansas City. That's going to be the night that they, hang their banner. That's going to be the night the guys get their rings. They're going to be riding a wave of emotion in Kansas City. The problem with that is they're running into a Jared Goff-led team that's got a much more powerful offense than that Rams team that scored 54 points on them. True, Kansas City's defense is better now than it was then as well, but they might be sleeping on the Lions a little bit with the 5th-ranked offense in the league last year, and some new weapons, some new toys for offensive coordinator Ben Johnson to play with. The Lions absolutely have a fighting chance. Right now, they're a 6-point underdog, and I'm not sure I would take the Lions in the 6. But I do think I would take the over.
Yeah, I love that call out, Mike, because I really believe that it's the defense that is the underrated part of this team. And that's why I wanted to make it a big focal point of the talk today is, the additions that they made in the secondary, it blows my mind because I was going to be satisfied with, picking up, guys of the caliber of Sutton and Mosley. Those are 2 good cornerbacks right there. Especially like Mosley. I mean, Spot Track had him rated to make about $16 million if he would have finished the season, but he got injured. So I think that we may have gotten a steal right there in Emmanuel Mosley, and then they bring in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and that really just pushed it over the edge. And then obviously drafting Brian Branch. So you've covered all of the bases in the back end of that defense. And, we were talking with Grove T GT from And We Know Sports, and he used to play some college ball, and we asked him, how big of a difference is a cornerback field that gives a defensive line, an extra 2 seconds to rush the passer. And his answer was like, I mean, it's huge. It's night and day. I think that's going to turn into a whole bunch more sacks. Main Event Mike, care to comment?
Yeah, coverage sacks is something that you hear all the time because the secondary is holding coverage long enough for the pass rushers to get there. And the Lions didn't get a lot of those last year. We had a lot of holes in the secondary, probably one of the worst secondaries in the league. That's been a real area of focus for Brad Holmes. And you know what I love most about it is the Chauncey Gardner signing, because that's the kind of player, that's the kind of deal the Lions never would get, right? Mosley and Sutton, sometimes we'd overpay for mid-tier guys just so we could get upgrades. We would have to overpay for mid-tier guys because no one wanted to come to Detroit. No one wanted to play for our coaches. But I love this Chauncey Gardner-Johnson signing for that reason. Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn had him in New Orleans. Aaron Glenn coached him in high school. They laid this foundation years ago. And, when it came time to go, Philadelphia made a push to sign him. They did not count on losing him. They counted on losing Darius Slay and maybe James Bradbury, but they did not count on losing Chauncey Gardner. And when they lost him, they had to increase their offers to those other two just to keep their Super Bowl secondary intact. So I love that Chauncey Gardner. It's going to make a huge difference. I actually see him playing a lot more corner than safety because we're looking good at safety with Tracy Walker coming back from injury. Now you got Brian Branch, who's also a safety and nickel corner. So, they're going to move him around. He's a top flight player, and he's going to make everyone else around him better. He's got leadership qualities and veteran experience, and he's been to a Super Bowl. That's going to help young guys like Kerby Joseph, Will Harris. That's going to rub off on them by proxy, and that's going to make us better. And what I love the most is we got rid of the guys that were killing us back there. Aurarie, Mike Hughes, and we not only upgraded them with better talent, but with top-level talent.
Yeah, I can't agree with that more. And while you were talking, I was throwing up some pictures of, and you can answer that question right there. Who do you like the best out of the signings? And it's got a picture. We got Sutton, we got Mosley, we got Johnson, and we got David Montgomery on there as well, because they made some impact signings during this offseason. And you had said something right there, and I'm going to agree with part of it, but Chauncey Gardner being more of a cornerback, I'm going to have to say that Chauncey Gardner is multifaceted, just like a lot of the other guys they signed, like Cameron Sutton can also play in that slot, and he can go back and he can play, up in the box safety. So these position versatility type of guys. Now, Mosley's just kind of an outside corner. That's kind of what he is. But Jerry Jacobs kind of proved his mettle where he could be a number 2 corner, cover the number 2 guy or go into the slot. So what they've built, and even Brian Branch, when you're looking at Brian Branch, his position versatility, they're saying that he could come up and be a slot corner plus play all of the safety positions. So I think what you're going to see is a rotation of different guys and all these different dudes that can play these different positions. And Glenn's just going to have some toys that he's going to be able to move around like chess pieces, and he's going to make some teams look like they're playing checkers while we're playing chess.
The question is, which free agent signing do you like the best? And my answer is probably going to surprise you. Yeah, C.J. Gardner-Johnson's the obvious choice.
Right.
But if we'd have just gotten Cam Sutton and Emmanuel Mosley in free agency and then drafted Brian Branch, I'd say we significantly upgraded the secondary just with those three. But by getting, obviously, Gardner-Johnson's the obvious choice there because of his experience and what he brings to the table. But my favorite signing is Graham Glasgow on the offensive line. We lost Evan Brown.
Look at you.
We lost like that. Hawks, and we bring in Graham Glasgow, a versatile offensive lineman that can play multiple positions, and he's a mauler. He's a big guy familiar with Detroit. He's a Dan Campbell kind of guy. He never really fit the other coaches when he was here before. Now he does fit the mold of what we bring, and I love that signing. It's kind of an under radar, not talked about so much signing, but we lost Evan Brown, and he was a guy we relied on to fill a hole every game. And now you bring in a guy with more experience and probably a better player in Graham Glasgow to fill that role. I think that's going to keep our top 5 offensive line in the thick of things.
Man, I absolutely love that call because you usually can't stump me right there. I'm looking for it. I don't have it on the top. I don't know where my Graham Glasgow picture was, dude. I had no idea you're going to drop a Graham Glasgow on me. I love it, dude. You know how much I appreciate big men when it comes to, protecting the quarterback and where I think that you really build teams. And I've always liked Graham Glasgow. I mean, I love the fact that when he plays center, that he hikes the ball with that old school, like holding the nose of the football. So I love that's such a good call out. As a 6 man, let's gush on Graham Glasgow a little bit more right here. As a 6 man, this guy can play guard better than everywhere Evan Brown at both spots, and he can definitely play the center a lot better. It was a total upgrade as a 6 man that is going to cover 3 positions of depth. Good call out, Mike.
Right, and he did attend the winningest football program in college football history.
Oh, look at this call out. I love you, Rob. That's awesome. Super Bowl hangover plus the first game, no film study equals Detroit win.
I love that call out.
You like that? We're a bunch of homers on here. Let me go get my homer display. I told you I was going to do that. We're going all homer. We know who we are. We know who we are in this. Oh, I don't have it on this one. I love the film study because sure, all they're going to have to go on is last year's tape and the new wrinkles and the new toys that Ben Johnson has. They're not going to see any of that coming. I mean, we finished last year with trick plays. I mean, we did a hook and lateral for crying out loud. I mean, jet sweep. I mean, you like that? He's been incorporating like one trick play at least, flea flickers, right?
Touchdown. I mean, he's been incorporating one trick play every game, and I think he's going to save a big one for that first game, maybe in the fourth quarter if the game is tight. But there's going to be a lot of things that they're doing in the offseason, the Lions, that they're keeping under wraps, and they're going to unveil it, and Kansas City's not going to see it coming. That could get us a real advantage in this game. And one thing that I think is important for that game is a quick start. To get out to a quick start. We can't fall behind by 2 touchdowns early, or this game's going to be over.
Man, this is one of those things that's lining up because what they're putting onto the board, right? The board of, okay, what's going to happen in this first game? It's the 2 high-powered offenses. I think it's going to be opposite of that because if I'm going to try to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, we want to take the ball away from Patrick Mahomes, right? And how do you do that? You run the football. You run the football. You run the football with David Montgomery. You give him the rock 25 times and let him average. I would love to see, and I've told you this off the air, but I would love to see the Lions get the ball and run the ball like 13 straight times and average 6 yards a carry and score a touchdown with David Montgomery. And just like, what are you going to do about it? Type of situation. Oh, you thought we were just going to pass the ball all over the place. No, you beat him by keeping him off the damn field. Don't you agree with that, Mike?
I do agree with that. It's a tough order, though, because the Kansas City Chiefs are tough along the defensive line. They've got good young players. They drafted a couple. They got George Karlaftis last year. They did lose Frank Clark, but they already had his replacements lined up. They're young. They're strong against along the defensive line, and it's going to make running the ball harder on them this year than it was last year.
Okay. And the thing is like, I would guess that if Main Event Mike went up to Frank Ragnow and asked him if he was up for that type of challenge with those guys that he has next to him on that offensive line, I think that they're going to be able to, not everybody. You're right. They have a good defensive line, but I think that's where our strength on strength. I think that we can surprise them in that situation, but we'll see. You never know. Maybe they'll come out and it's a hook and ladder play to Jahmyr Gibbs for a TD, right? And they start out swinging, right? Roderick Martin has a comment, says Branch can also play punt returner. That's interesting.
I did not know that.
So
that's right. I did hear that. Returns punt also. Well, it'd be awfully hard to unseat Khalif Raymond with that role. He's one of the best.
Yeah. Khalif Raymond. Gosh, I'll tell you what, if you want to give somebody, if you had an award for unsung hero from the Detroit Lions last year, it was unequivocally Khalif Raymond. I mean, how many big catches is Khalif Raymond going to make in a season? And Amon-Ra get all the credit, right? But
yeah.
He's sun god approved. That's what Amon-Ra would say.
For unsung hero of the 2022 season for me would be Brock Wright. After the departure of TJ Hawkinson, everybody predicted doom and gloom. Instead, we scored 12 touchdowns from the tight end position, and Brock Wright was a big part of that. He played solid. He played hard. He's just a Dan Campbell kind of guy. And now you bring Sam Laporta into that room too.
Woo!
And that is going to help when you run into a defensive like Kansas City. And if you're not able to run the ball, if they're able to get pressure on it, who's the quarterback's best friend besides the running game? The tight end.
You damn right it is.
Having multiple weapons like that, a guy who's fast like that and athletic at the tight end position is going to help us overcome those kind of challenges where the defensive line is giving us fits.
Yeah, that is a great call right there on Sam Laporta. And honestly, they the report out of the rookie mini camp, the Pride of Detroit, listening to that podcast, said that Sam Laporta was the man. And I know it's just guys running around in short, but it wasn't just that. Like they said that his athleticism and that he appeared to be a man amongst boys in that situation. Like he was catching these touchdown passes and like waving at the guys while he's running away from them when they couldn't, they couldn't even put their hands on him, and I know that they're not.
Well, I hope so, because Michael Mayer was still on the board. Dalton Kincaid still on the board when they took Sam Laporta. And these guys were ranked higher than them. So hopefully this is Brad Holmes, Sure Look Holmes.
Sure Look, yeah.
Sure Look Holmes pulling the best tight end out of this draft, even though he was ranked fourth.
Yeah, and you know what they said that was really showing out was, I don't even know who his quarterback was at Iowa, but scheme and the fact that all they do is play defense in Iowa did not help his look at all, but him actually being unleashed a little bit. And I don't think that he's going to be used as a strict tight end, Mike. I think our boy Kabinda might be in trouble with the way that they may use this guy.
That's an interesting pick. I definitely don't think you're going to see him inline tight end. Most of the time, they're going to line him up outside
in the slot. They said they even were lining him up. They said 30% of his lineups were in the X and the Y.
Yeah, wow. Lining up in the X.
Lining up in the X, or not the Y. Is it the Z? What's the number two? The
X is your number one outside the number. Y is the number two outside the number, and Z is the slot.
Okay, so yeah, the Y and the Z. He was out there in that 30% of the snaps. So I do believe that Ben Johnson has a way different look at using his skill set, And Iowa, I mean, he was pretty much like their only offensive weapon at all. So it was like, yeah, I mean, he was even throwing the ball there. Like, I mean, he's like, he had to do everything. So, I mean, him coming in and yeah, you're right. Like him popping out, being a slot threat, putting Amon-Ra on the other side as a slot threat. I mean, you're going to get a lot of one-on-one speed matchups on the outside. And
I'm really good to see James Mitchell coming back off a foot injury that hampered him all last year as a rookie.
right.
They have big plans for James Mitchell, and I think this year we're going to see those plans come to fruition. And here's an interesting stat for you, Russ. In 2020, 12 personnel, you're familiar with 12 personnel, right? Which is 2 tight ends on the field. Was 18% in 2020, 18% of teams, 18% of the snaps, on the average was 12 personnel. In 2021, that number went up to 20%. In 2022, that number went up to 22%. So we're seeing a rise in 2 tight end sets. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Mostly that is because of the complexities of these defenses and the speed and the lateral quickness that these players have now on defense. And the extra tight end gives you flexibility in matchups.
Right.
So you're seeing an increase every year in 12 personnel. So for the Lions to get rid of Hawkinson and have James Mitchell, Brock Wright, and Zylstra, now Sam Laporta.
Right.
All of those guys combined don't equal what you're paying TJ Hawkinson.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something?
Wouldn't you rather have 4 guys that are mid-tier than 1 elite and 1 below mid-tier guy? I mean, because that's all you can afford for salary cap. This whole game is about salary cap and moving it around.
It sure is. It absolutely sure is, Mike. I love that take. And Brad Holmes is like, he has just begun, ladies and gentlemen. Like I can't quit gushing on this guy. And now that we're in a position where I think that I can actually talk a little smack and I know that I'm out of my depth right here, but the stuff that he's been cooking up and how he's cleaned up the books over just the course of 2 short years, I know they're ahead of schedule from where they thought they were going to be. I know they were going to go in here and they thought that 2024 was supposed to be it. I remember the talk. I remember the timeline and how the media was driving it. And they definitely arrived. And because of guys like Malcolm Rodriguez and James Houston and Amon-Ra St. Brown, late round hits, they have arrived to this place of being able to compete for a Super Bowl title, a NFC North championship, all of those things that they can check off of these boxes. They're able to do it in 2023, 1 year early.
Yeah. And you make some great points there. And not only are those guys, not only late round gems helping this team, but I think a big part of that too, Russ, is some of these guys that they didn't anticipate working out so well. That's why they were on 1-year contracts or 2-year contracts. Guys like Kaminsky, Isaiah Buggs,
right?
Alex Anzalone. They end up re-signing these guys because maybe they didn't work out at another team, but they worked out here.
Right.
They fit what we're doing, and they buy into what we're doing. And that, I believe, in my heart, I believe that is a cherry on top. That is an unexpected windfall that the Lions got these guys that were, expected to just be hole fillers.
Unsung heroes that end up being
buy-in, play team ball. They get re-signed. Now your team is exponentially tougher than you expected it to be, and that's how you get ahead of schedule in a rebuild. And
it becomes depth, and that's what I mean. We talked about this right after the season was over, but we had talked about how this team was already like, we didn't need like holes to fill. What we needed was high-end talent to just drop in the middle of these rooms that already had depth in it, right? So, and that's exactly what they did. I mean, the scenario that you just talked about played out completely, right? They knew they were going to get rid of Swift. So what do? You drop Jahmyr Gibbs right in the middle of that room. He instantly competes for touches and Like, it's not like he's got to fight to make the team. Boom. You go to the 18th pick. You take Jack Campbell. He's going instantaneously. He becomes the best linebacker in that room that way overachieved, and all the other guys become the depth. You did the same thing. You just talked about it with Sam Laporta. He instantaneously becomes the best tight end in that room where that three-headed monster becomes your depth. And then, Brian Branch is another example. He's a guy that has no pressure on him. None. He has no pressure. You got a loaded safety room, a loaded secondary room that's going to be able to guide him right into this, this NFL transition. And he's already got the right mentality. I mean, that's what Holmes is doing. That's what he's doing.
Things are lining up, Russ. And here's another good example. Brad Holmes specifically said he fully expected Jamal Williams to be on this team this year.
Right.
And when that deal didn't get done, you bring in who? David Montgomery? What a great pickup. We upgraded basically on accident because Jamal and his agent dropped the ball. Otherwise, Jamal Williams would be back on this team, and I would be fine with that. Stop playing with us.
Yeah.
We love.
Stop playing with us.
Everyone loves Jamal. And he was a great Lion for the 2 years that he was here. And we all could see him being on the team, but it didn't work out. And what happens? We get the best tackle-breaking running back in the league.
Right.
When it comes to tackles, David Montgomery leads the league in breaking tackles. And that bodes well when you're running behind the fifth-ranked offensive line in the league. So we upgraded at that position, too, almost by accident. It's almost like a windfall again. So things are locked. That's why Lions fans are so excited. And we're actually saying the words, here we go, Super Bowl. Whoa. We must be crazy.
Yeah, but the thing is like what you saw last year was the Lions knock off a whole bunch of these things that like you call them the checklists, right? The to-do list. And like not winning on the road, not winning multiple games on the road, not having a road winning record. They knocked all that off of there so that whole scenario can go thrown out the window. Now, I think that if you win the NFC North division, you're a title contender. I think that they can win the NFC North this year. I think they will win the NFC North this year. So to me, that makes you a title contender. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not trying to be a homer. I'm not trying to get ahead or have my expectations be too high, but they've done it. They've built the team. Like there's Holmes and Campbell have the team that they can compete with starting this year. And it ain't going to end this year. That's the other calming thing. Like what you're seeing right now is sustainable.
And a lot of people are going to tell you to pump the brakes. A lot of people tell you to slow your roll, Russell.
Okay, that's fine. You're entitled to that.
Are going to be what they point to. They're going to point to our history and how we've never done anything, how we've never won anything.
And that's fair. And that
is fair, but
isn't it?
Here's the reason though that you should slow your roll a bit. We all should slow our roll a bit. The Lions are not the only team that got better in the league. Not the only team that got better in our division.
But we got better.
This is still the NFL. Okay, any given Sunday. And it is not outside the realm of possibility that the Lions could start 0-6, Russ.
You're right. Yep.
0-6,
and they could start 6-0.
We're going to look like fools.
And they could start 6-0. And I would have been like, okay, you guys, I told you. So I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to be that guy because I'm not backing down. I'm not backing down from it. This team is good. I'm not going to let history or anything BC, that's before Campbell, I'm not going to let any of that cloud my judgment of what I'm seeing out there. And I saw an 9-8 team with an atrocious secondary go out and make drastic improvements in their secondary. And you added that to the 5th ranked offense that also got better. So I am not slowing my roll. I love this team. This is the most excited I've ever been for any Detroit Lions team. I don't normally, the people that know me know that I don't get excited like this for Detroit Lions teams, especially during the Matt Patricia era. So, you can slow your roll if you want to. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you having, thoughts of my well-being in the situation that if we started out 0-6, yes, that is going to hurt my feelings, Mike. It will. But they're not going to start out 0-6. And I think there's a possibility that they could go out on opening night, shock the world, and then everybody can just be like, oh, where'd they come from? I'd be like, we were a train. We were already moving. We were already moving.
We already downhill momentum. And then when you open the season against Kansas City,
yep.
And if you win that game, what kind of momentum is that going to give you? What it's going to do is set you up for a nice.
Robert, thank you. Robert, thank you. I know we are up against it, and he puts the comment right in here that is going to segue me into wanting to finish this broadcast right here. Do you have any parting shots, Main Event Mike, before I let him go?
I want to hear Robert's comment.
Well, I'm going to end with Robert's comment.
Oh, okay. No, I'm all set, Russ.
Okay. All right. So Bobby Lane says he says Bobby Lane curse. Robert says Bobby Lane curse is finally broken. I believe that 100%. Thank you for that comment. Thank you to everybody that is watching, the 17 of you that are there. This is Main Event 365. This is the phone session. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's free. That's a nice, cool way that you can help us out a little bit. We appreciate the Detroit Lions News for letting us use their platform in all of this. So with that being said, from Main Event Mike and Russell Wayne, I'm going to say God bless you and one pride.
Well,